I was just driving past my daughter's house that afternoon, thinking about dropping off a book I thought she might enjoy, when something strange caught my eye. Parked right outside the gate was a silver Lexus. Not just any Lexus, my Lexus, the one I had given to my ex-husband Harold after the divorce, out of nothing more than habit and misplaced kindness. I hadn't seen that car in months. Harold lived clear across town. What would he be doing here on a weekday afternoon, parked in front of my daughter Emily's house? Something didn't feel right. I pulled my car a little farther down the block, out of view, and walked back quietly, my heels crunching softly on the sidewalk. A soft breeze carried the sound of laughter through an open window. I heard Harold's voice and Adam's, my son-in-law. My stomach turned cold. I moved closer. What I heard next changed everything I thought I knew about love, family, and betrayal. "When she finally signs the new transfer forms, we'll have it all," Harold was saying. "The shares, the real estate, the retirement accounts, every penny." I froze. My hand instinctively went to my purse, fumbling for my phone. I hit record. "She still trusts me," Harold added with a dry chuckle. "Lucille actually believes I'm helping her update her estate plan. And once she signs," Adam said, "we file quietly. She won't know what hit her." That was the moment I stopped being someone's ex-wife, someone's mother, someone's afterthought. That was the moment I remembered exactly who I was and what I had built. They thought they were playing chess with a pawn. But I'm not a pawn. I built the board. Harold and I were married for 25 years. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was the kind that grew over time, built on shared goals, late-night conversations, and a quiet belief that we were building something solid together. I met him when I was 28, just starting my own interior design business, working out of a one-bedroom apartment with a foldable drafting table and a heart full of ambition. Harold was a contractor then, rugged, honest. He had this big laugh that filled every room he entered. And I'll admit, I found his confidence magnetic. We fell in love building homes together, quite literally, while he laid foundations. I picked the finishes. Together, we turned properties into dream homes. He asked me to marry him in the unfinished kitchen of our first project. We celebrated with sandwiches and sparkling cider on plywood floors. I said, "Yes, of course." Emily was born 2 years later. I stepped back from the business for a while to raise her, but I never really stopped working. I kept the books for Harold's crew, helped him manage bids and timelines, and sometimes even climbed scaffolding in the early days when we couldn't afford full staff. We were partners, or so I thought. Over the years, my interior design firm took off. By the time I turned 50, I had a team of 6, a loyal client base, and a portfolio that had been featured in 2 national magazines. I didn't flaunt it. I just wanted to contribute. Even after Harold and I divorced, we remained civil, at least on the surface. We shared holidays with Emily and our grandson, Evan. I even gave Harold the Lexus because, well, he needed a car, and I had just bought a new one. That's the kind of person I've always been. Generous, trusting, maybe too trusting. So, when Harold said he wanted to help me restructure my retirement, I believed him. When Adam asked casual questions about the business, I thought it was curiosity. I never imagined they were both memorizing the layout of my financial life so they could tear it down from the inside. I sat frozen under the window for what felt like forever. My heart was hammering so loudly, I was certain someone would hear it. I gripped my phone with both hands, holding it close, praying it was recording clearly. I didn't dare breathe too loudly. Didn't dare move. I felt like a ghost in my own story, overhearing the plans of people who had erased me. Inside, Harold was still talking. That same voice I once trusted enough to share a life with. "Lucille still got everything under her name," he said. "But she thinks we're helping her streamline. All the paperwork's ready. Just needs her signature." Adam chuckled. That woman built an empire and left the front door wide open. It's honestly embarrassing how easy this is. That was my ex-husband and my daughter's husband working together, planning to rob me. "I told you she still sees me as the guy she fell in love with in that half-built kitchen," Harold added. "All these years later, she still believes I'd never hurt her." They laughed. And I, Lucille Harmon, who once paused her career to raise a child and build a business from scratch, stood outside with my back pressed to the bricks, trying not to collapse. For a moment, I thought I might vomit. 25 years of shared history, memories, milestones. That time we couldn't afford a crib and built one from scrap wood. The Christmas Eve when Harold stayed up with me all night finishing a rush project. Our first business card printed on recycled cardstock because we were broke but proud. I had believed in all of it. And now they were counting down the days until I signed away everything I had ever worked for. A twig snapped beneath my foot, loud in the silence. Inside, both voices stopped. I crouched low, hiding behind the hedge. Did you hear that? No, not Margaret. Harold's voice tightened. Probably just the neighbor's cat, Adam replied. They went quiet again. I waited long enough for the conversation to resume, for them to get comfortable again. My phone kept recording. Their voices drifted back out like poison. We file quietly, claim she's confused, maybe unstable, play the age card, and if she pushes back, we escalate. Say she's overworked, paranoid, use her independence against her. I couldn't listen anymore. I crawled away from the window, hands shaking, lungs burning, and didn't stop until I was back in my car with the doors locked. I sat there staring at the steering wheel, unable to move. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a heist, a con job, and I was the mark. But they had made one mistake. They assumed I'd fall apart. They didn't know the years I spent rebuilding after the divorce. The deals I'd closed in boardrooms full of men who didn't take me seriously. The late nights I worked. The risks I took. The grit it took to make something real. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I backed out of Emily's neighborhood and drove home. One thought forming clearly through the fog of devastation. They thought they were writing the final chapter of my life. But I hadn't even begun the next act. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with nothing but a glass of water and the recording playing softly on loop, the glow from my laptop washing everything in cold blue. Every time I heard Harold laugh, something inside me cracked, then hardened. It wasn't just the betrayal that haunted me. It was the realization of how blind I'd been. I started thinking back. All the little moments that didn't make sense until now. Like the time Harold accidentally took home one of my client ledgers, then brushed it off as a misunderstanding. Or when Adam asked to review the company's liability policy after I had surgery last year, saying it was just in case something happened to me. Emily's sudden interest in my estate plan. Her request to keep things simple and make Adam the point of contact for my firm's legal matters because, in her words, he understands the lingo. How did I miss it? The signs were there like crumbs in a dark forest. And I, the woman who once negotiated multi-million-dollar design contracts, had followed those crumbs without question. Because I wanted to believe they cared. That, even after the divorce, Harold respected me. That Adam saw me as more than a checkbook. That Emily, my only child, would never let this happen. I'd spent my life solving other people's problems, fixing homes, beautifying spaces, offering comfort. But now, no one was coming to fix mine. That truth burned, but it also cleared the fog. I wasn't weak. I wasn't broken. And I definitely wasn't done. I turned off the recording and opened my laptop. Years of financial records, contracts, account statements, organized, detailed, secure. I hadn't built my life out of luck. I'd built it with discipline. Harold and Adam thought I had no defenses. They didn't realize that just because I loved quietly didn't mean I fought quietly. I pulled out a legal pad and drew 3 columns. Assets, weaknesses, leverage. It was time to think like a businesswoman again. This wasn't just about protecting what was mine anymore. It was about reclaiming the version of me I had tucked away for too long. The woman who built something out of nothing. The woman they had tried to erase. And, trust me, I was about to remind them exactly who she was. The next morning, I called the one person who'd always treated my business like it mattered, Sarah Ling, my accountant for over a decade. Sarah was sharp, discreet, and didn't ask unnecessary questions. When I told her I needed a full audit on all shared accounts, business or personal, she didn't hesitate. "Is this about Harold?" she asked. I paused. It's about a mistake I should have corrected years ago. Sarah went quiet for a beat, then said, "Give me 48 hours. I'll pull everything." While Sarah got to work, I made another call to Janelle Cortez, a family lawyer I'd once helped redesign her office for. She owed me a favor. Within an hour, she agreed to begin drafting a legal preservation notice, one that would freeze all shared assets until clarity could be established. "Don't file anything yet," I told her. "Let them think I'm still asleep." Meanwhile, I revisited every conversation I'd had with Adam and Harold over the past few months. I remembered details I had brushed off at the time, phrases like, "Just sign this and I'll handle the rest," or, "Don't worry, this is just a technical adjustment." The paper trail was subtle, but real. Sarah's report confirmed what I feared. Over the past 6 months, Harold had transferred nearly $38,000 from my design firm's operating account into a personal trust, one that listed Adam Prescott as the secondary beneficiary. He was funneling my business profits through minor consulting fees to a fund they both controlled. Worse, Adam had used my electronic signature software access, which he was given after helping with a supposed tech update, to authorize at least 2 transfers. Legally, it would be complicated. Ethically, it was a betrayal of the highest order. I needed more, so I baited the hook. The following week, I invited Harold and Adam over for dinner. It wasn't unusual. I'd hosted Emily's birthday here the year before. I played it cool, told them I wanted help updating my estate plan just to take pressure off Emily. The irony nearly choked me. They came, of course. Harold with his fake warmth. Adam with that overconfident smirk. My home office was set up with hidden cameras. My phone was recording. I handed them a folder of fake documents I'd created with Sarah's help, forms that looked official but meant nothing. I told them I was ready to sign everything over, but I just had a few final questions. Their guard dropped immediately. Harold explained which assets would transfer more smoothly through Adam's management. Adam reassured me that he'd handle everything discreetly. They were like wolves who thought they'd cornered a deer. But they never realized I was the one who'd set the trap. They signed their own downfall that night, not on paper, but in the form of audio and video evidence that would later be submitted in court. By the time they left, I had everything I needed: admissions of intent, false representations, and clear proof of collusion. I stood at my front door as they walked to their car, smiling politely, heart thundering in my chest. They thought I was handing them my legacy. They didn't realize I was handing them the rope. Because when a woman builds something with her own 2 hands, she knows exactly where the foundation is and exactly where to place the fault line. The following Monday, I walked into Janelle Cortez's office, not as a victim, but as a client with a case. I handed her a flash drive containing 2 audio files, 3 surveillance clips, and Sarah's financial report. She reviewed it all in silence, nodding slowly, eyes hardening with each passing minute. "Lucille," she said, finally looking up, "this isn't just unethical. It's premeditated financial coercion, fraud, and maybe even conspiracy to commit fiduciary abuse." I simply nodded. I didn't need labels. I just wanted action. That afternoon, Janelle filed an emergency petition with the family court to freeze all business assets, personal trusts, and shared investment accounts associated with me, Harold, and Adam. Within 24 hours, the judge granted the freeze pending a formal hearing. Neither Harold nor Adam was notified immediately. Timing was everything. The next move was personal. I called Emily. She answered with her usual warmth, completely unaware of what was unfolding. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "would you mind if I stop by for coffee tomorrow? Just us." She agreed. And I prayed that the woman I raised, the one who used to fall asleep in my arms after school, who cried when I missed her first piano recital, still lived somewhere inside the polished professional who married a man like Adam. That night, the final hold was placed. Every card Harold and Adam might have used was now inactive. Their access to my empire, as Adam once arrogantly called it, had been reduced to dust. Tuesday morning, they felt it. At 9:11 a.m., Harold tried to transfer funds for a property tax payment, denied. At 9:46, Adam attempted to log into the online investment portal. Access revoked. At 10, I received a text from Harold. Did you change something with the accounts? Getting some weird alerts. I didn't respond. At 11:25, Adam called twice, then left a voicemail. Lucille, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we talk privately? By noon, Janelle received a response from their legal representative, an aggressive request for a meeting framed as concerns over asset mismanagement. Their panic was beginning to rise, but I remained still. I spent that afternoon at my grandson, Evan's school play. I clapped the loudest, laughed when he forgot his lines, and brought him ice cream after. Because life doesn't stop even when betrayal surrounds you. And sometimes reclaiming your peace means doing the most radical thing possible in a world that expects you to break. Continue living. That evening, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my porch. The storm had just begun for them. For me, it was finally passing. Because when you've built something brick by brick, you don't run from a little wind. You anchor yourself deeper and let it blow. The court hearing came faster than expected, less than 2 weeks after we filed. Harold showed up in his best suit, trying to look composed. Adam arrived late, carrying a thick folder and trying too hard to appear confident. But when the judge admitted the video and audio recordings into evidence, their bravado cracked like porcelain under pressure. Their voices echoed through the courtroom. Their laughter, their planning, their complete and total disregard for the woman they thought they could outmaneuver. At one point, Harold tried to interrupt the playback, muttering, "That's not the full context," but the judge silenced him with a single look. When it was over, the silence in the room was heavy. The judge's ruling was swift. Asset freeze upheld. All transfers voided, control of the business and estate left entirely in my hands. And most importantly, the court recognized their actions as a coordinated effort to manipulate, defraud, and emotionally exploit the respondent. Not just morally wrong, but legally indefensible. They didn't even make eye contact with me as we exited. But Emily did. She stood outside the courtroom, arms folded, jaw clenched. She'd listened to the recordings. She'd seen the transfers. She'd watched her husband turn into a stranger and her father betray her mother. We didn't speak at first. Then she said, "I didn't know, Mom. I swear." I believed her. But believing didn't mean forgetting. "It's your turn now," I said gently, "to decide who you are in all this." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I want to do better." And from that day forward, she started the work. She filed for divorce. She changed her last name back. She even offered to help me rebuild what Harold and Adam tried to tear down. I let her in carefully, slowly, because rebuilding trust, unlike tearing it apart, takes time. 6 months later, I hosted a dinner at my home. Just friends, a few clients, some new faces. Laughter spilled out of my kitchen. Real laughter, not rehearsed, not manipulative. I stood by the window holding a glass of wine, watching the lights flicker across my backyard. And I felt something I hadn't in years, freedom. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet kind that comes when you no longer live in someone else's illusion. Harold and Adam tried to rewrite my story, but I kept the pen. And I wrote my ending on my own terms, with truth, with grace, and with the power they never expected me to reclaim. If you had told me a year ago that the people I trusted most would become the architects of my undoing, I wouldn't have believed you. But betrayal doesn't always arrive with fury and chaos. Sometimes it comes dressed as familiarity, as family, as love. What Harold and Adam did to me wasn't just financial. It was spiritual. It was personal. It was a carefully calculated attempt to rewrite my story while I was still living it. And for a moment it almost worked. But what they didn't count on, what most manipulators never count on, is the quiet strength of a woman who's had enough. They didn't see the years I spent building, the nights I stayed up budgeting when no one else cared, the deals I closed, the clients I won, the sacrifices I made when applause never came. They saw a target, but I knew I was the foundation. So, if you're watching this and you've ever been lied to, underestimated, or used, know this. You are not naive for believing in people. You are not weak for being kind. But there comes a time when kindness must meet boundaries, when belief must meet clarity, and when love, true love, must start with loving yourself enough to stop being someone's easy option. I didn't get revenge. I got something better. I got myself back. And now I live without apologies, without pretending, and without anyone controlling the life I worked to build.